In the modern world, advertising is at every step. It was no different in ancient Rome. However, it was very different from those we know today. Senators are traditionally not supposed to do it. At one point, it was even banned by law. It was believed that financial matters should not influence their political decisions. They had to be independent, and his income as well. According to the Roman elite, the only worthy source of income should be agriculture. Equities, a social group lower than senators, were not so limited. However, both of them dealt with trade through slaves and freedmen. Many were foreigners. Trade was in the hands of not very wealthy people. The only known newspaper that resembled a modern one was the Acta Diurna. It was a kind of official informant. After the fall of the Republic, Acta became a more social newspaper. Advertising was limited to a person interested in promoting their products. We have many examples, most in the Pompeii. An interesting discovery was in the house of a certain Aulus Umbricius Scaurus. He became extremely rich by trading and monopolizing the garum around the city. Several examples of mosaics were on the floor of his house. The inscriptions on the mosaics read, "Best Scaurus mackerel garum, best fish sauce, Scaurus finest mackerel garum, and Scaurus top quality fish sauce." This was a form of self-advertising and product promotion, unless he liked walking around his house to remember how great quality his garum is. Despite the limitations, merchants tried to advertise their goods on a larger scale. It happened that they placed amphoras containing various products and short inscriptions, testifying to their excellent quality. Although these product labels contain limited vocabulary that was so widely used, that became a formula and could be very shorthand. Some described it simply as garum. Some were more ingenious, such as a merchant from Antium who, knowing that his garum would have to compete with others, on the amphorae with his wares wrote Leque, Antiae, Exe, sauce made in Antium, great quality. Another form of advertising was signed at hotels and inns. The names of some hotels were very similar to today's. The inscriptions encouraged to enter the inn, for example. "There is a hotel here, triclinum with 3 beds and all comforts," or Idone announces, "For an ace, you can drink here. If you give 2 aces, you will drink better wine. If you give 4, you will drink falernum." It is very interesting to note at one of the hotels that food is served here in the Roman style. Often, production and commercial activities were carried out at home. Goods were sold on the street through the most advanced part of the house, so bakeries, slaughterhouses, dye houses, etc., were marked with characteristic symbols. For example, with paintings of bread, ham, olive oil, and wine. Finally, it is worth mentioning that the Romans very often advertised themselves. Political life in the empire was of great importance to the inhabitants. It happened that political slogans were placed on the walls of buildings. They praise a candidate, but sometimes they try to discredit one another. A great example is a caricature of a certain Rufus. It seems that he was not liked by his neighbors. Sometimes simple slogans were also posted, for example, "Please, choose Elvio Sabino, builder of a worthy state, a good man." The inscriptions in Pompeii tell us that political advertising and anti-advertising were extremely popular. One may wonder whether Roman advertising can be considered advanced or extremely primitive. However, we should not compare the ancient Romans to us in this matter. It seems that people in antiquity had an extremely developed social instinct. They spent an unusual amount of time away from home and did not need the newspaper we have today, simply because they were looking for information differently. Another feature of the Romans also indicates that advertising was as developed as it was necessary for them. Namely, it is their extraordinary pragmatism. If the Romans needed better publicity, they would probably develop it.